a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. It is September 1st. It is the first Thursday of the month, and that means we have none other than Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed. You can listen to Matt Connarton Unleashed 4 to 6 Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, going to 95.3 WMNH if you're in the Manchester, New Hampshire area, or you can go to mattconnerton.com or IPMNation.com. Tune into his radio show there and be part of that conversation. But tonight, Matt is all ours for the next hour, and you can be part of this conversation by calling in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. And on that note, Matt, how are you?
I'm well. You know, I don't think I've ever told you this before, but you know, at the beginning of the OMTimes station ID there, where you hear the Om. Every time I hear it, I expect the next thing I hear to be, "Let's get ready to rumble." It just reminds me of that.
Hey, well, I think that there has been a lot of rumbling going on in the world today, and I bet that you have been having some good shows on Matt Connarton Unleashed.
Oh, yeah. Last couple of days, we haven't really talked that much about politics, believe it or not, just because my show is... it's a political talk show at its heart, but we mix other things into, like, musical guests. I love interviewing musicians. And today we had an entrepreneur on. His name's Josh Wynn, who's a very successful real estate agent who's found his success through using social media to really promote his business. And he's done stunningly well. I love talking to entrepreneurs. I know you do as well. And I find it very sort of revitalizing, and for me, it's somewhat selfishly, I feel rejuvenated after talking to somebody like Josh. But so this week we haven't been as focused on all of it, but when I do get to the politics, it's usually about this ongoing situation with, of course, the FBI's search of Mar-a-Lago and all that has come from that. And I'm looking now at Reuters, and because I haven't seen anything for the last, we were doing so many other things on my show today. I haven't had a chance to really look at the news in the last 2 hours, because I'm on 4 to 6, so I just got off the air. And I do see Reuters is reporting U.S. judge signals willingness to appoint a special master in the Trump search case. So that would be a win for the Trump team to get a special master in there to go through the documents, even though the Department of Justice says, well, there's really no point at this point because we've already had our filter team do this. So,
yeah, well, I saw this funny thing, which was somebody suggested that they should appoint a special master and they should make it Hillary Clinton.
How perfect would that be?
I would be like, that would be good. The last thing I read, and I haven't read anything for an hour, was she signaled a willingness, but was still postponing doing anything, saying anything, and has not done it. And it's almost like the longer she postpones, the more irrelevant it becomes. Like, she's trying to play both sides. She's trying to, because Trump put her there, she's trying to play on that side of the road, but also this dumpster fire is getting hot.
Yeah, and, I think she, I think she may just be trying to be very cautious. We are in such uncharted territory with this. Nothing like this has ever happened before, where we had a former president who apparently took home a lot of very top secret documents, to use the technical term, very top secret. No, it's not the right term exactly, but so I think she's proceeding with caution, but I think in some ways, I think the government has been overly cautious in the sense that they've shown everything leading up to the search. They showed great deference to Trump and, being very, taking their time getting to that point where they finally felt compelled to execute an actual search on Mar-a-Lago. But I think they've been too deferential. I understand on one point it's a former president, but at the same time, if somebody's, I don't care who it is, if somebody has top secret documents that their possession of could actually be compromising our national security in some way, screw deference. You got to go get those documents, and you got to do whatever you have to move on that to get those back. I actually think they've been too deferential.
Yeah, I would agree on one hand that they've been too deferential and they've let too much time pass. And I saw somebody said something which I thought was particularly interesting, which was if there is a printer in Donald Trump's office, in that office suite, if there is a printer with like a memory card, then they needed to make sure they grabbed that memory card. Mm-hmm. To see what documents could have been possibly replicated before they were seized.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they did or they didn't, but when I saw that pop up, I was like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that, but then I'm not the FBI, so hopefully they did. Because that would be I definitely even another level of damning evidence if he was making copies of some of this stuff, not just holding it, but actually interacting with it. But I don't know. I've heard a lot of different theories, and I want to hear yours. Why do you think he created? Why do you think he took all these documents? What's going on in your mind about like what was going on in his mind? Take a moment and step into the sewer and tell me what the sewer looks like.
I can only think of one reason for him to have these things, and. Well, actually, no. I can think of more than one reason, but the most obvious reason is to sell something, which is, in a sense, it's really shocking to think about, even for him. Even though I regard him as a criminal to begin with, the idea of him actually selling something, selling top secret information that could compromise our national security to one of our enemies. Or even one of our allies who might find the information useful. It really is shocking to think about, but it's hard to think of too many reasons why he would want that. Now, something maybe slightly less nefarious would be maybe he wanted this stuff because, he's most likely running for president. He's most likely going to be the Republican nominee. There's a distinct chance that he could win. He might actually, as horrifying as it is to think about, I mean, it's such a nightmare scenario, but it is not anywhere near outside the realm of possibility that he could be reelected to the presidency in 2024. And so maybe he has some things that he wants to do when he's president in 2024 that he needed these documents to sort of, get a head start on some of that, to prepare for some of that. So that might also be a possibility. It's also possible that he just wanted the stuff because he thinks it's cool to have it, and he gets off on having been a president and having something that he's not supposed to have, and he might think that's that it might just be an ego thing. It might just be that he's seriously, very severely mentally ill. And has a reason that doesn't even make sense logically to anyone other than himself, because he's just severely mentally ill, and it doesn't have to make sense. And he just wanted the stuff because he wanted it. So I guess there are a few different reasons, but the most obvious reason, and if we use Occam's razor and say, well, the most obvious answer is usually the right one, or the simplest answer is usually the right one, he was planning to sell some of this sensitive information and profit from it.
I think that I would not say that that's obviously, I mean, that's one thing. It also could be used for bargaining power for a number of different reasons, for favors or things. You know, it might not even be sell for money. It could be trade. It could be traded for positioning, for
bartering.
Depending on how bad things went. But I think that there was a part of him that it mentally broke him when he lost the presidential election. I think it broke him. I mean, he's a narcissist. It broke him. And, just the fact that he on, what's it called? Lie Social or something?
The ironically named Truth Social?
Yeah, Lie Social. He went on there and he said, I won the 2020 election and I need to assume office immediately. And this election and the 2020 election needs to be redone. That is unhinged rambling, even for Trump.
Yeah.
And this is the act of a desperate man who is mentally dissolving, who literally, it's like watching, this cascade effect of him getting deeper and deeper into, into this reality of his.
Yeah.
And I think that he took these because he really believes he's still president.
Yeah.
He really, in some part of him, believes he's really a president. He's like one of these South American presidents that was deposed, and that he is in his own little form of, exile in Mar-a-Lago, fighting to get back his rightful place. I think that there's a part of him that actually still thinks he's president. And therefore, he did have every right to take this with him. And this was part of his show and tell to people about who's really still president. Does Joe Biden have access to these things? No, I have them. I'm still really president. I really think that this is his mental state decomposing.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense.
And then when he says things like, and then he went on and he made some comment about, they weren't thrown on the floor like that. They were all admitting that he knew that they had them. He knew where they were. I mean, this is a lawyer's nightmare.
Yeah. Well, the real nightmare for the lawyer is, I forget her name, the lawyer who sent that letter and said, and said under oath, you've got everything. We handed over everything. She might actually end up in prison.
Well, I would hope so.
Yes.
And at this point, anybody that saw that top secret, classified, high-level information, anybody that was exposed to it in that circle that saw that and did not report a crime should be in prison as well.
Yeah. Well, somebody had to help him move all that stuff out of Mar-a-Lago. That's something I'm really curious about, is how did he get, who helped him in the White House put this all together? Put all these documents into boxes, and that's what I'm curious about.
Yep. this is still part of a plan to overthrow democracy in its own way.
Yeah.
And create the fascist state. I think that's the best word for it. What word would you use for what Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott are trying to create out of this country, besides the Three Stooges?
I don't know about DeSantis and Greg Abbott necessarily, but I would say Trump certainly wants, he admires autocrats. He admires authoritarians. I think he'd like an autocracy. I don't know. I mean, I have no regard for Ron DeSantis or Greg Abbott, but I don't know if they're, although in some ways, Ron DeSantis might be more Trump than Trump himself, but I think Trump would like an autocracy. I think he'd like to be king, frankly.
Well, I mean, look at what DeSantis did. Besides the blunder of throwing people into jail for because they legally couldn't vote when his office told them they could. I mean, that's just. That's just a system failure and an overreach on his part. But I mean, the taking out the guy in Tampa who was duly elected, getting rid of some school board members that were duly elected, going after counties and areas that are heavily Democratic and deciding there was a reason why he as governor can say, I don't care that you elected them. I'm replacing them with my people. You don't think that that's steps towards a kind of autocracy?
Yeah, I do. I guess it's hard in my mind. It's just hard to measure these guys against Trump because we don't know how far they're willing to go. In other words, with Trump, we know he's willing to do anything because he created an environment and encouraged and even poured gasoline on it while it was happening with a tweet about Mike Pence. He was willing to attempt a coup. I mean, the insurrection, January 6th, it was basically an attempted coup that ultimately failed. But he tried it. He really tried it. And
yep.
I don't know if Ron DeSantis would do that in the same situation. I don't know if Greg Abbott would do that in the same situation. Maybe they would. I don't know. I don't particularly want to find out, but it's hard to measure anybody against Trump because Trump is. I mean, we've never seen anything like that. We've never seen anybody who would do that before.
And we will be right back in just a moment and talk to more to Matt about the bland and boring world of politics here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show. I'm on this week with Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed. You can listen to Matt Connarton every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. at 95.3 WMNH in Manchester, New Hampshire, or you can go to mattconnerton.com or ipmnation.com to listen to Matt's show and actually interact. If you want to interact with me, myself, and Matt today, you can do so by calling in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. Call in, ask your questions, leave your comments. The only thing we ask is that you be respectful. So, Matt, we discussed an interesting possibility that he's already sold some of these secrets off air. You want to pick up that thread of conversation?
Yeah, well, as Chris pointed out, there's Jared Kushner. People look at Jared Kushner and they try to figure out why would anyone trust him with their business. He hasn't exactly been successful, but I'm looking at, this is from Vanity Fair. Report, Jared Kushner's $2 billion Saudi check appears even more comically corrupt than previously thought. The reason this smells so bad is that there is all sorts of evidence that he did not receive this on the merits. So, as Chris was pointing out during the break, why does he get all this money? Why is anyone trusting him, enough to do business with him? And is it possible that some of this information that Trump had has already been sold off or has already been shared? People have had access. Maybe the Saudis have had access to it. We know, actually, I shouldn't say we know, but there's a strong suspicion that certain people did know that there was classified information being held at Mar-a-Lago. For example, there was a Chinese woman who apparently tried to get access to it, who tried to break in. Why was she doing that? Did she just want to get close to Trump? Was she just curious to spend some time in Mar-a-Lago and explore? Or was she after something? So there's probably people who knew. Obviously, there were people who knew other than Trump, but there may have been people outside of Trump's inner circle who, for whatever reason, were aware that there was valuable information or information that might be valuable to them at Mar-a-Lago. So maybe some of this information had already been sold or bartered with, and that might have something to do with why somebody like Jared Kushner is able to make a $2 billion deal that no one thinks he's actually qualified to make.
Yep. Well, I think that there are people on Trump's inner circle that are actually playing Trump. I mean, Trump is not a stupid man, but he is a blind man. He's blind to certain kinds of things because of his narcissism. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think people like Abbott and DeSantis are actually more dangerous, because I think that they would be more subtle in ways that would actually even be more difficult. Do they have the level of passionate followers or the charisma that Trump had in his heyday, which seems to be waning? Polls are not as kind to him as they used to be. And those numbers are shifting away from him. But, I think that in some ways, Abbott and DeSantis don't have. I think they're closer to being sociopathic. I mean, I don't think that they have anything that resembles actual human emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have the narcissist at the level that Trump does, which means Trump's interplay. The people that can most play a narcissist are the ones that are closest to them. Play them for a fool.
Mm-hmm.
So Kushner got $2 billion. Trump didn't. So did Trump's narcissism make him steal these classified documents? But did Kushner leverage the fact that he got Kushner the access, the top secret access that he wasn't supposed to have, that he wasn't qualified for, that he refused to have? I mean, because we don't know that we have not heard of or seen any back channel where Kushner is feeding money back into Trump.
Yeah.
So, and Trump would never do anything for anybody else, even his son-in-law, to get $2 billion. Come on. He'd stiff the guy for a check at McDonald's. That's not Trump's nature. So there's something there. I think the daughter and the son-in-law, I think they're playing Trump. No, and doing it in a way where they're more likely to keep their hands clean if Trump falls. Just my thoughts.
I think probably most people who associate with Trump in any way are probably playing him to some extent. Just like he uses everybody, they use him. It kind of makes sense, and I think and Trump might be a little bit too trusting for his own good. That I have thought of this often, and I never ever hear anyone else reference this particular thing. So maybe I make too much of it in my own mind, or maybe I just remember odd things that no one else seems to remember. But, I love debates. Every presidential cycle, I watch all the debates. I watch all the primary debates for both the Republicans and Democrats, and and the general election debates. So I don't miss any of them. And in 2016, during one of the primary debates, they were doing, I never liked this question because no one ever answers it genuinely, but the moderators did this thing, tell us, and of course the debate stage was full of candidates. Tell us something about yourself that you think might be a potential weakness, or something about yourself that you're working on to improve, or something. And it's kind of a softball question, but it's also a waste of time because nobody answers it sincerely, because everyone always answers it in a way that makes themselves look good instead of being honest. But Trump's answer at the time, it stuck with me. Trump's answer at the time was, I can be too trusting. Sometimes people tell me things, and I take them at their word, and later it comes back to haunt me. So I think sometimes I'm too trusting with people, and that stuck with me. For one thing, it seemed like he was actually being sincere, which for Trump is very unusual, of course. But it seemed like he was being sincere when he said it, so that kind of jumped out at me. But I've also never forgotten it because, we often talk about, and I don't mean just you and I mean just generally people talk about how Trump probably is used by everyone in his life. Obviously, look, why do you think Melania is married to him? Because she thinks he's sexy? No, it's the money, right? And the fame and the notoriety. Why does anybody want anything to do with Trump? Because he's a great guy? No, to get something from him. So I'm sure all of the relationships in his life are transactional and are of utility to the person he has that relationship with. So, why would any lawyer want to represent him, for the notoriety of representing a former president, not because he's going to actually pay them, because he doesn't pay his lawyers. So I think it's quite likely that, Jared Kushner sees an opportunity to use Trump and get a $2 billion deal, and that may be exactly what's happened. Obviously, Jared Kushner would not be, even if it's all on the up and up and it has nothing to do with top secret information. If Jared Kushner was not Trump's son-in-law, there's no way he gets that deal. It's certainly not on the merits. So I think everyone uses Trump, and I think Trump uses them, and it's probably a very hollow existence for all parties concerned.
Yep. So, do you think they're going to indict him? What are your thoughts?
I hope so. I think he's a criminal. I'd love to see him indicted. I believe that no one should be above the law. Even if you can't get him on the Espionage Act, which you probably can, but even if not, certainly I think they should indict him for obstruction of justice. I worry about it because I think what Lindsey Graham said is true. I think he's a POS for saying it because it was an implicit threat, but I think it's true. I think there will be violence. I don't really get into this whole civil war that people talk about because I don't think it would be that. But I do think you'd see a lot of these, these militia freaks that like to cosplay as army men in the woods, running around with their guns and talking about, how much they love Trump and how much they hate immigrants and all that. They're going to be looking to, if Trump gets indicted, it's a similar mentality to when they attempted, the insurrection. They're going to be looking to kill some people. And I mean, I'll tell you something. I mean, I actually, Dr. Kevin, I would never say this on my own show, and there's a reason why, but I'll say it here. I don't expend the energy worrying about it necessarily, but I do think about it. I think about my own safety. I am a talk radio show host on an FM station, and I am working within a medium where most political talk radio is conservative. You've really only got a handful of successful liberal talk show hosts. I don't think I'm as liberal as everyone thinks I am, but I get tagged as a liberal because I hate Trump. So therefore, everyone assumes I'm this super lefty. I'm actually kind of centrist in my politics, I think, maybe left of center, but I get, I get put in that box, that liberal box. So I kind of stand out, even though I'm in a small market. I've got a pretty strong online following at this point, but I'm a small market guy. Obviously, it's Manchester, New Hampshire. But I stand out because I'm someone operating on terrestrial radio who is not a conservative, and there just aren't that many of us. Again, there's a few others, like Tom Hartman is very successful and Arnie Arneson, but there's not many of us. I actually worry a little bit, and I'm probably going to worry about it more than I already do if something happens like Trump is indicted, or God forbid Trump is the nominee and actually loses in 2024. If Trump is the nominee, I want him to lose. But I also understand if he does lose, there's going to be an explosion, I believe, of violence from the MAGA cult. And look, I'll just say it. It has occurred to me that because I stand out as someone who's not a conservative on political talk radio, somebody might come for me. It's not outside the realm of possibility that I could be sitting here doing my show, and I say here because I'm still at the station, obviously. I could be sitting here doing my show, and some MAGA cult militia freak shows up and decides, time to do something about this. I'm going to do this for America and Trump and Jesus, and I'm going to go kill me a liberal, and shows up at the station and puts a bullet in my head while I'm on the air. I don't think that's going to happen. And the door to the building locks at 5 p.m., so they'd have to get in the first hour anyway. And I would never say this on my own show, partly because I don't want to put an idea in somebody's head. But it's not outside the realm of possibility. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to stop me from doing, it'll stop me if it happens, right? But, worrying about it's not going to stop me from showing up and doing my show every day. But I do worry about it a little bit. It is not outside the realm of possibility. Somebody's going to be, that Matt Connarton guy, he goes on the radio every day. He's got thousands of people listening to him trash our Messiah, Donald Trump. I'm going to do something about it. And they're going to come here and do something about it.
You have, yeah, and I get that. I just want to assure you, if they put a bullet in your head, I can happily do mediumship and channel Matt Connarton from the other side. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I would do that for you, Matt, just so you know.
Well, so. I appreciate that. I'll keep that in mind.
Yep. And so, but no, I mean, I think that we are coming, somebody said something, which was, I think they said, how many people were actually involved with the January 6th riots that showed up with the guns and everything? 965, I think it was. And that if Trump gets indicted, the 74 million that voted for him, whatever the number was, 73,990,000 are going to go and go back to their day. That it is a core radicalized group of people which basically need to get arrested and thrown in jail for breaking the laws. And they've always been here. They'll always be here. They've been around. It's not the first time that this country has gone through this. Not at the level, I think, that we're doing it now because of social media and the smallness of the country. But there's always been government-opposed armed militia-type people, doing their stuff or having their messiahs. It's just better organized and through TV and radio and social media and computer and internet. There's a larger spotlight on it. But you have to, we've rooted it out before. We'll root it out again if we don't give our power to the fear of the threat.
Mm-hmm.
They get more done by the fear of their threat because there's like 100 or 1,000 times more threats than actual carry-throughs. There are carry-throughs, and there are way too many carry-throughs, and I don't want to minimize those carry-throughs, but a lot of these people, and of course, with being able to be anonymous more through social media platforms and stuff like this, they can make those threats and be pretty safe on the fact that they're not going to, that they're not going to be held accountable for them unless they go out and take an action and get caught.
Mm-hmm.
And some will. 965 decided to show up and try to overthrow our government. And the problem is I think there was 965 outside. There was a few hundred inside that were working for the MAGA cult as well.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones, like you said, who packed the boxes, who allowed those documents to leave the White House, who didn't challenge. So we'll be right back for our last segment on the Dr. Kevin Show here with Matt Connarton this week.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you.
And you could be me?
For just 1 hour.
If you could find a way.
To get inside.
Each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. We are here with Matt Connarton this week, as we always are on the first Thursday of the month. Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed. You can listen to Matt Connarton 4 to 6 Monday through Friday Eastern Standard Time on 95.3 WMNH Manchester, New Hampshire, or you can tune in at mattconnarton.com or IPMNation.com. And be part of the Be Part of Matt show, where you can call in or text in or IM in or whatever in. But here you can talk to Matt and myself about today's conversations by calling 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. So, Matt,
yes.
What do you think is used? So let's talk about, you referred to it, but let's talk about the Lindsey Graham debacle. Rosebud seems to be, out there, Velcro to Trump's butt as usual. Should he said it? Did he said it? Was it an implicit threat? The judge, of course, he's getting a lot of heat. The latest ruling is he is going to have to testify in front of Georgia. And if they indict Trump, we know Lindsey was pretty much on a lot of inner circles. And if Lindsey was aware that this information was there, is he going to go down with him? Because if anybody knew, Lindsey Graham would be on the top of my list as somebody who was aware that Trump had illegally taking things out of the White House and had committed a felony and was continuing to do so through lying about it and through, what was the term they used? There's a few terms they've used. So what are your thoughts?
Well, Lindsey Graham, he's just a coward. He doesn't want to be hassled by the MAGA cult. If you remember, on January 6th, the night of January 6th, when they all returned to finish their work certifying the election, Lindsey Graham got up and said, I'm out. I talked to, I forget exactly what states he mentioned, but we'll say Georgia and Arizona. I talked to Brad Raffensperger, or I talked to not Raff. It wouldn't have been Raffensperger, but I talked to somebody from Georgia, who said, we have hundreds of examples of voter fraud that we've identified, hundreds. And Lindsey said, well, just show me 10. Well, they couldn't show me even one. And then I talked to somebody in Arizona, and they said, yeah, we've got thousands of examples. And I said, well, just show me 10. And they couldn't show me one. So that's it. I'm out. I'm done with this voter fraud stuff. And then the next day he got hassled at the airport. They were chanting traitor at him. They were getting in his face while he was trying to board a plane. These Trump supporters. He doesn't want any more of that. And so ever since that happened, he's been sticking by Trump as much as he can, and he'll continue to do so, I'm sure. I don't know if he knew that there were documents there at Mar-a-Lago. I'm sure Rudy Giuliani knew because he was staying there apparently. I don't know if Lindsey Graham knew, but he's chosen his path. He's going to stick with Trump no matter what. And he goes on. I saw Lindsey Graham on Jesse Waters' program on Fox News, and Waters is going on about how, the FBI, they plant evidence, they manipulate evidence, and and they make things up, and Graham is just sitting there nodding his head along with what Jesse Waters is saying, tacitly endorsing it and signing off on it. So, now Lindsey Graham is a coward, and he's another guy who, he's a veteran. He was a JAG lawyer in the Navy. He knows better, but no, he's in the Trump cult, and he's just like the rest of them. He chooses Trump over his own country. Disgusting. He's disgusting.
So, how much do you think that, where are you seeing the midterm now? Are you quite as positive about the flipping of the House and the Senate, or do you think that all of these shifts are going to make a difference?
Well, historically, of course, as we know, when you have a Democrat in the White House, the Republicans pick up seats, and when you have a Republican in the White House, the Dems pick up seats. That's how it always goes. That's how it was expected to go this time. Roe v. Wade being overturned and has really kind of changed some of the calculus. People who took abortion rights for granted now realize they cannot take that for granted anymore. And a lot of Republicans have really been stumbling. Republicans who are on the ballot in the midterms are kind of tripping all over themselves trying to figure out how to navigate this. Because Republicans, when Roe v. Wade was still in place, Republicans had the luxury of taking whatever position they wanted. They could say, yeah, I'm pro-life. Hell, I'm the most pro-life person you ever saw. I'm totally pro-life. I want to outlaw abortion. I want to get rid of it. No exceptions for rape and incest. I'm as pro-life as it gets. And they could say that. They had the luxury of saying that, knowing, or at least believing, that there would be no consequence for taking that position because Roe v. Wade was the law of the land. So they could say whatever they wanted. And it was never going to make a difference as far as they knew. Then, to the shock of many people, Roe v. Wade is overturned. Now Republicans no longer have that luxury, and they're trying to figure out how to not look like, fanatics, right-wing fanatics, because they're in a position to actually vote on things and, vote on a potential, if Republicans get control, they could be voting on a potential national ban, a federal ban on abortion, in which case it would no longer be up to the states. So they're in a very difficult position. And I think that I still think they're going to do well in the midterms just because historically that's what happened. But I don't think they're going to do as well as they would have because, generally Democrats will vote Democrat, Republicans will vote Republicans. It's among the independents where elections are won or lost. And if you're an independent and you happen to be pro-choice, maybe you usually lean right, so you're an independent who often votes for Republicans. But this time around, if you really believe in women having the right to choose, you might say, no, this time I'm going to vote for a Democrat. So I don't think Republicans are going to do – they're still going to pick up seats. I believe they're going to pick up seats no matter what. But I don't think they're going to do as well as they would have prior to Roe. As far as what's going on with Trump, I don't think it makes much difference in the midterms. Certainly not – it's not like you're going to have some Republicans going, maybe we're not – we don't like what Trump has done. We don't like that he took top secret documents, so maybe we're not going to support our candidate. No, they're still going to support their candidates. So I don't think the Trump stuff makes much of a difference in the midterms, but I think the overturning of Roe v. Wade might actually have some effect.
Well, and they're also threatening contraception and Ogenfeld,
right.
Ogenfeld. And, the Supreme Court has made some very, inflammatory comments about where they're headed, where they're barreling towards. And, you know, I think that there are more independents that are seeing that if we're going to have a court that is leaned so far right, the majority of which were appointed by presidents who did not win the popular vote, all but one, I think, that is going to be part of the consideration of I need to have a Congress and a White House that's going to offset a Supreme Court that's gone off the rails. I mean, Biden's numbers are going up, not tremendously, but they're going up. And I think that, you know, I would love to hear your take on it, but I think that I'm kind of impressed. He's got some new team people in, and I think we talked last month about the new social media person he has in, right? No. Yes, Doug?
I don't think we talked about that specifically. No, I don't remember talking about that with you.
So this new social media director for the White House has really been taking the mickey out of a lot of the Republicans in a way that was more aggressive than we've ever seen the Democrats be in the past.
Right.
She's like a take no prisoner. She was like the last press secretary that was there. I can't even remember her name now. Jen Psaki.
Yeah.
She's like the social media version of Jen.
Okay.
And she's going after the jugular bone. She's calling out, you know, these people that were against the student loan bill. I'm sure you saw that about how she listed the PPL loans that were forgiven for them. So you don't get to say that stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The PPP. Yep.
And Biden's strategy of repeating over and over again that his comments are not aimed towards Republicans, but the MAGA, the cult. I mean, he's now calling MAGA a cult. He said that. And he's talking about the MAGA people who are trying to hijack the Republican Party. And I think he's giving some cover to Republicans to either choose to sit out or to even vote Democratic if the other choice is a MAGA Republican. I think he's creating a cover for Republicans that we could see show up in the voter booth. I think the strategy is brilliant personally, but I want to hear what your thoughts about those things I said were.
Well, I'm just glad to see some fight. As you know, I've been outspoken on your show and on mine about Democrats being weak, Democrats generally bringing a knife to a gunfight, and if it's a knife fight, they bring a plastic spoon. And we're actually kind of, you know, and you see the Dark Brandon memes, of course, we're actually kind of seeing the rise of Dark Brandon and some actual fight. And Biden's talking tough, a lot tougher than he usually does, not being so conciliatory. He seems like it's like he's sort of given up on this whole bringing the country together, because I think he's finally accepted, no, that's not going to happen. So we are more polarized than ever, and trying to be conciliatory to the other side is not going to happen. They don't want it. They don't appreciate it. They don't accept it. So screw it. You know, so fight, you know, and I think that's good to see. I'm glad to see it. It's a nice change. And I hope it continues. And I think that's part of what's bringing his approval ratings up. You know, it's like he's kind of woken up a little bit. You know, he started off, I said on my show, he set a very weak tone in the beginning when, you know, before he was even inaugurated, when Emily, what's-her-name, from the GSA was refusing to sign off on this transition. And he was just saying, yeah, well, you know, the Republicans, they'll come around. They just haven't accepted it yet, but they'll come around. And I said at the time, no, that's the wrong answer. He needs to be talking tough and saying, look, the election's over. We won. She needs to sign off on this transition. People are dying. And we need to, you know, we need to get our people ready to go in. and save people from COVID, But instead, he was very conciliatory and said, no, we'll be patient, and the Republicans, they'll come around, and we'll have an orderly transition. And instead, what we got was January 6th. So it's good to see him finally snapping out of that and being a little tough. And I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, like, out of the Joe Biden thing, and, I would not be surprised if this woman is running both his account as well as the White House. He tweeted today, this is what Rick Scott's election year plan says. All federal legislation sunsets every 5 years. If a law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again. And then they put underneath translation, your Social Security every 5 years will be eliminated unless it's voted back into existence.
Yep.
That's a slam to me of, again, going more aggressively doing things. So I'm sure we're seeing some life.
Yep.
And we're going to see in a month whether Orange Head is in an orange suit. We can only hope.
I hope so.
Thanks, Matt. As always,
all right, Dr. Kevin. Thank you. You too. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.